लाइव हो गया बेटा. So in the previous lecture we were discussing about South America, and I discussed the various countries that make up the South America. I discussed the physiography, Andes Mountain, Guiana Highlands, Brazilian Highlands, and then I discussed the various grasslands, Llanos in Venezuela and Colombia, in Orinoco Basin, Llanos is there, tropical grassland, savannas in this Amazon Basin in Amazon River, known as selvas. North of it is Llanos, that is tropical grassland. South of Amazon, again, I told you there is Mato Grosso plateau over which tropical grasslands are found, known as Campos Cerrado. Cerrado means grassland. Further south in southern Bolivia, Paraguay, and northern Argentina, Gran Chaco is there. It is semi-arid as well as swampy in the eastern side. It yields two very important timbers, yerba mate and quebeco. Then further south, I discussed there is pampas, temperate grasslands spread over Uruguay and Argentina. Further south, I discussed there is a Patagonia plateau, isn't it? In the western side, northern Chile and southern Peru, there is Atacama Desert, trade wind desert. Central Chile, there is Mediterranean climate because of shifting of pressure belts. So we were discussing all these things. I discussed all these things. Uh, this Peru, this southern Peru and northern Chile, Atacama Desert, and then I discussed this various minerals like iron ore. Brazil is having the single largest deposits, that is Carajás Hills in Pará state. Then after that, I discussed Itabira. Itabira is second largest iron ore deposits of Brazil in the eastern part. And then I discussed about oil. Orinoco Basin accounts for 20% of the oil deposits of the world. It is in Venezuela. Venezuela is having the largest reserves of oil, but quality is not good. Then this Lake Maracaibo and this river flowing northward, River Magdalena, they are also having oil reserves. Magdalena River accounts for bulk of the hydroelectricity produced for Colombia. Then I discussed about Parana and Paraguay River having carnivore fishes and piranhas. I discussed the Itaipu Dam on Parana River that accounts for 40% of the total hydroelectric production of South America. So all these things we discussed. Now let us move forward. Uh, in South America, population is sparse. Population is sparse. Online आ गए बच्चे? So in South America, population is sparse. I told you Brazil, roughly 2.5 times of India. Its population is less than Uttar Pradesh. So basically, this population is sparse, and basically here low level of technology and high level of urbanization. Technologically, it is underdeveloped. So here there are certain big settlements, like you see in the here you will find a city, Sao Paulo, the largest settlement in southern hemisphere, Sao Paulo. It is a mega city. Mega city means population more than 10 million. That is population more than 1 crore. Then second mega city, Rio de Janeiro. And third is capital of Argentina on plate estuary. This estuary is known as, this is very famous for this estuary, this, it is very famous for oil. This is Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires, capital of Argentina, Sao Paulo, largest city of Southern Hemisphere, Rio de Janeiro. These three are mega cities whose population is more than 10 million, that is more than 1 crore. Now let us discuss economic activities. What all economic activities? Basically, in South America, if you see, minerals are there. I told you minerals, it's minerally adequately endowed. But partial activities, agriculture, happen to be very important. Minerals I discussed the other day, Potosi in Bolivia is famous for tin deposits. You know. I discussed in Brazil, Paragominas and Porto Trombitas famous for bauxite deposits. Guyana and Suriname are having huge bauxite deposits. Colombia is very famous for Colombian coffee, best flavored coffee in the world. Cauca Valley, Cauca Valley. So now let us see the economic activities. Economic activities. First is cattle ranching, cattle rearing. First we are discussing pastoral resources. First cattle rearing. Now if you see in Brazil, I discussed there's a Mato Grosso plateau. In Brazil, there's a plateau known as Mato Grosso. This plateau is covered by tropical grassland. This plateau is covered by tropical grassland. Which is known as Campos, Cerrado. Cerrado simply means grassland. Campos is the name. Cerrado means grassland. This Mato Grosso plateau happens to be the most important beef cattle. Here grasses are not nutritious. These grasses are not nutritious, nor the cattle are of very good quality. Maximum number of cattle in Brazil, the population of cattle is more than population of human beings. In this Mato Grosso plateau happens to be the most important. 75% of the agricultural land in Brazil is under pastures, out of which Mato Grosso plateau and this Campos grasslands account for the bulk. In Brazil, basically here cattle rearing is done for beef, not for milk, because grasses are poor, cattle are of inferior breed. They are reared only for beef. And basically, if you see, Brazil happens to be the world's second largest producer of beef and largest exporter of beef. Brazil is world's second largest producer after USA. And it is largest exporter in the world. In fact, India is among the top 5 beef producing countries. USA, Brazil, then European Union, then China, then India. In terms of beef production, Brazil is largest beef producer in South America, second largest beef producer in world after USA, and largest beef exporter. Here cattle are reared for well established markets. It is done for commercial purpose. Now next is Venezuela and Colombia. We are discussing cattle rearing. Here again, as I discussed yesterday, there is a Orinoco basin. There is a river Orinoco River. This basin is covered with tropical grassland. Again, it is covered with tropical grassland known as lianos. These are also tropical grassland. Again, here grasses are less nutritious. Grasses are less nutritious, and cattle are kept for beef. In both Campos and Llanos, the grasses are less nutritious, quality of cattle is inferior, so the per unit production is less. Matlab they are not so healthy, they are not so fat. So despite low per capita production of meat per cattle, still because of sheer number, this Brazil happens to be the largest exporter and second largest producer of beef. This region here also grasses are less nutritious, beefs are of inferior quality, so per capita production is less. But if you come to Pampas grassland spread over Argentina and Uruguay, here in Argentina, first region was Campos, this Campos grassland, second was Llanos grassland, and this is temperate grassland. This happens to be the temperate grassland. In Argentina, I'm rubbing this. In Argentina, this is temperate grassland known as pampas. Here grasses are nutritious and the quality of cattle is good. Argentina is a major producer of beef. Argentina, here cattle are of good quality. Pastures, the natural pastures have been removed and they have been reseeded with alfalfa grass. Alpha, which is highly nutritious. So high grade cattle, nutritious grass, obviously. The quality of cattle is good. Cattle are kept both for meat as well as milk. Per capita yield of cattle is high. In Argentina, if you see, almost 80% of the total agricultural land is under pastures. In Brazil, it was 75% of agricultural land was under pastures. In Argentina, 80% of agricultural land is under pasture. And here, cattle rearing is done on luxuriant or nutritious temperate grassland. Since grasses are nutritious, so and cattle are of high grade, so the yield per cattle is high. Cattle are kept both for milk and meat, but mostly for meat. Here, ranches are there, grazing grounds with having barbed wires. Cattle ranches are there. On one day, one ranch is open and cattle rear over here. Second day, second ranch is open. These cattle ranches are known as estancias. In Argentina and southern part of South America, especially in Argentina, these cattle ranches are known as estancias. Now, if you talk about Uruguay, again, entire Uruguay is covered with temperate grasses. Entire Uruguay. Here, cattle are reared on temperate grasslands. Obviously, the quality of grass is good, quality of pasture is good, quality of cattle is good. So the yield is high. Here again, cattle are kept for both meat and milk. Now, even more important than cattle, sheep rearing. Under pastoral activities in South America, sheep rearing happens to be even more important than cattle rearing. Argentina happens to be the most important sheep rearing country in South America. In fact, in Australia, merino sheep are reared purely for wool. In Argentina, sheep are reared mostly for mutton. Argentina is the most important sheep rearing country of South America, in fact, of the world in terms of mutton. Now, if you see, here in the southern part, south of Pampas, this is Pampas, south of Pampas, there is a region known as Patagonia. Patagonia. In Patagonia desert, you can call Patagonia plateau, same thing. In Patagonia plateau, sheep rearing is the only activity which pervades throughout. That happens to be the most important economic activity of all the people. In Patagonia, it is divided into two states. Northern state, northern part of Patagonia is known as Chubut state. Southern part of Patagonia is known as Santa Cruz state. These are two provinces, states of Argentina. Santa Cruz happens to be the most important sheep rearing region of Argentina. Argentina is the most important sheep rearing country of South America, in fact, of the world for mutton. And Santa Cruz within Argentina happens to be the most important region or state for sheep rearing. In Santa Cruz, sheep are kept for meat. In northern Chubut state, here merino sheep are kept for wool. Remember it. In northern part of Patagonia, that is Chubut state, sheep are reared for wool, so merino sheep are there. But the most important state or region for sheep rearing is Santa Cruz, where sheep are kept for mutton. So next is Uruguay. Uruguay, basically, this is entirely covered with temperate grassland. Sheep's, high grade sheeps are reared on pampas. In Argentina, pampas are not used for sheep rearing. In pampas, cattle rearing is done both for meat and milk. Wheat cultivation is done. Maize cultivation is done. Sheep are reared in Patagonia plateau. But in Uruguay, sheep are reared on pampas grassland, and these sheep are of high grade. They are reared for wool. Almost 50% of the wool that is exported from South America comes from Uruguay. Uruguay, sheep are reared on nutritious pampas grassland, and these sheep are of high grade. They are reared for wool. 50% of wool export taking place from South America comes from Uruguay. Now, sheep rearing is also important activity in Bolivia, Brazil, Peru, but these two are the most important that require explicit mention. Now, next is, see, in South America, जैसे if you want to carry weight on mountains like Andes, then llamas are used as beast of burden, and alpacas, these animals are important source of wool. एंडीज पे चढ़ना है सामान लेकर के तो लामाज आर यूज. खच्चर जैसे वहाँ यूज होते हैं ना, खच्चर, दिस जस्ट लाइक दिस, लामाज, बीस्ट ऑफ बर्डन. Alpacas are a source of fine wool. Now let us come on to agriculture. Agricultural activities of South America. First, Argentina. Argentina is the most important wheat producing country. It accounts for almost 60% of total wheat produced in South America. Argentina happens to be the most important wheat producing country of South America, and it accounts for 60% of total wheat produced. And here wheat cultivation is done in fertile pampas. Here you see there is a place Bahia Blanca. North of Buenos Aires, there is a place Rosario. If you join Bahia Blanca to Rosario to Buenos Aires, this crescent, this crescent shaped area is known as wheat crescent of Argentina. It is here that wheat is grown. मतलब wheat, this entire land area is devoted to wheat cultivation. This is known as wheat crescent of South America. Connect Bahia Blanca to Rosario. Rosario is just south of Santa Fe, and connect Rosario to Buenos Aires. This is wheat crescent, and this is the most important wheat producing region of South America. Now, second is Brazil. In Brazil, wheat, see, equator passes through it. Wheat requires cool climate. So, wheat is grown in the southeastern part, cool southeastern part of Brazil. Wheat requires cool climate, and equator passes through Brazil. And so, wheat is grown in the southern part, southern cool states. If you see here, there are three states. This is Rio Grande do Sul. This state is Santa Catarina, and this state is Parana. Parana. These three states, Rio Grande do Sul in south, north of it Santa Catarina, further north of it Parana. These three states happen to be the most important wheat producing states of Brazil. Now, maize production. Mhm. This is the map of states of Brazil. This is the map of Brazil, boundaries of various states. Maize. Maize. Basically, Brazil is a very important producer of maize, not only in South America but in the world. It is largest maize producing country in South America and third largest maize producing country in the world. And it is slated to be second largest exporter of maize in the world. Largest maize producer in South America, third largest maize producer in the world, USA, China, then Brazil. And it happens to be the second largest exporter of maize in the world. Maize is the staple food crop of Brazil, eaten by both human beings and pigs. Here, maize is grown in southern southeastern part. See these states. This is Mina, Minas Gerais. These are the name of the states where the maize is grown. This is Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is also a city. Sao Paulo is also a state. Rio de Janeiro is also a city. Rio de Janeiro is also a state. Parana, Santa Catarina, and this is Rio Grande do Sul. These are the states where maize cultivation predominates. Where maize cultivation predominates. In Brazil, Minas Gerais, state, Sao Paulo, Paraná, Santa Catarina, and Rio Grande do Sul. Next to Brazil, Argentina is the most important maize producing country of South America. In Argentina, I told you if you join Bahia Blanca, to Rosario to Buenos Aires, this is Wheat Crescent. This is just north. This is Bahia Blanca. This is Buenos Aires. This is Rosario. Around Rosario, including there's a city further north of it, Santa Fe. Santa Fe is the same city up till which ocean-going steamers can navigate in Parana River. This is the region for maize cultivation, close to wheat cultivation. Maize cultivation around Rosario and Santa Fe. This region is exclusively devoted to maize cultivation. Now, next is sugarcane. Obviously, Brazil is the world's largest producer of sugarcane. It is largest exporter of sugarcane. Although area under sugarcane, India has largest area under sugarcane. If you talk about sugarcane, then Brazil is the largest producer and exporter of sugarcane. %30 of the total sugarcane produced in world is accounted alone by Brazil. Largest producer and largest exporter of sugarcane. Here, basically, this northeastern region and in southeast, this Minas Gerais, Sao Paulo, and this Rio de Janeiro. It is a city as well as it is also a state. These two areas, one in the northeast, this coastal area, famous for sugarcane cultivation, and second, these three states, Minas Gerais, Sao Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro, is important for sugarcane cultivation. In this region, sugarcane cultivation coincides with coffee cultivation and cotton cultivation. Cotton is grown in those areas where those land areas which have been abandoned by coffee cultivation, cotton cultivation takes in. So this sugarcane region coincides with region of coffee cultivation and cotton cultivation. This is exclusive for sugarcane. Now, after Brazil, it is sugarcane. After sugarcane, it is coffee. Again, Brazil is the world's largest producer of coffee, world's largest exporter of coffee, and basically within Brazil, if you see, within Brazil, this Sao Paulo state is the largest producer. Bulk of the coffee production comes from Sao Paulo coffee. Brazil is the world's largest producer of coffee, largest exporter of coffee. Here coffee is grown on terra rosa soil, and these coffee plantations are known as fazendas. The plantations of coffee are known as fazendas. Here, coffee is grown on Terra Rosa soil. And in Sao Paulo state, the largest port of Brazil, that is on the coast of Sao Paulo, Santos, largest port of Brazil. And this port is known as World Coffee Port. Santos is the largest port of Brazil. It is the coffee port of the world on the coast of Sao Paulo state to the east of Sao Paulo city. So, coffee is grown in Sao Paulo, mostly in Sao Paulo. Brazil accounts for 25% of the total coffee produced in the world. So, this Terra Rosa soil is very suitable for coffee cultivation. So, coffee is a very important activity. Next to Brazil, Colombia in South America, in coffee production, Brazil is first. Next comes Colombia. In Colombia, coffee cultivation is done west of Bogota. West of Bogota. Colombian coffee is world renowned for its flavor. Best flavor. And this coffee of Colombia is grown in Cauca River Valley. Very famous. Colombian coffee is world known for its flavor. It is the second largest producer of coffee in South America, but now it is third largest producer of coffee in world. First is Brazil, second is Vietnam, third is Colombia. Previously, Colombia was second largest producer in world also. Now it is third. But for its flavor, best flavored coffee of the world is found in Colombia, west of Bogota in Cauca Valley. Now, cocoa. There are two things: cocoa, coca. Cocoa from which chocolate is made, coca from which cocaine is made. Cocaine. Cocaine, drug. 75% of the world production of cocaine comes from Peru, Bolivia, and Colombia. Cocoa is used for making chocolate. This is grown in Bahia, Bahia state of Brazil. Is a major producer of cocoa from which chocolate is made. So here Bahia state dominates. Apart from Brazil, cocoa is also produced by Ecuador, but Brazil is most important. Now cotton cultivation. Here I told you Brazil is a major producer of cotton. If you talk of cotton, then Brazil is a major cotton producing country. In north, just to the west of sugarcane belt, I told you this is sugarcane belt in northeast. Just to the west of sugarcane belt in northeast, cotton is grown. Cotton cultivation. And in southern states like Sao Paulo, here coffee is grown, cotton is grown in those lands which have been abandoned by coffee cultivation. Now coffee cultivation band ho gaya hai, there they have started growing cotton. So Sao Paulo is the largest producer. This Minas Gerais, and this is Sao Paulo is the largest producer of cotton. And next important area is this area of cotton cultivation. This is the most important, cotton. Here in Sao Paulo, cotton is grown in those lands which have been abandoned by coffee plantation. Now, if you see the map of Australia, this South America, then It's not given there. It's not given there. In southern part, there's a this province, Rio Grande do Sul. In this southern state of Brazil, there's a this is Rio Grande do Sul. There's a lake, lagoon type lake, known as Lagoa dos Patos. It is coastal lagoon type lake. At its northern end is Porto Alegre, and the southern end there's a city, Rio Grande. Now, Rio Grande happens to be the second. This is the lake, lagoon. It is lake where five rivers fall into this lake. So it is freshwater lake. Although it is along the coast, it is also known as Lake of Ducks. Ocean going big ships can move into this lake, Lagoa dos Patos. Rio Grande happens to be the second largest port of Brazil. Largest is Santos, and here oil refining is very important. I told you this Rio de la Plata estuary is famous for oil. Here, oil refining at Rio Grande is very important. Porto Alegre is the capital of Rio Grande do Sul, and it is a very important economic, industrial, cultural, and political center of Brazil. Porto Alegre, very important. In here in Brazil, if you see, there are certain big centers in Santa Catarina. At the coast, there is a city, Tubarão. It is the largest steel making facility of South America in Brazil. Tubarão, largest steel making facility. So South America, there is not much industries. Basically, agriculture happens to be the most important activity. In fact, the entire urbanization in South Argentina, if you see, these Buenos Aires, Montevideo, Montevideo is the capital of Uruguay. Buenos Aires is the capital of Argentina. Bahia Blanca. Then you see Rosario. All Santa Fe. All these cities. Here the urbanization, the credit for urbanization goes for sheep rearing and cattle rearing, because it was the sheep and cattle rearing regions which got connected by road and rail to these slaughtering centers. These were previously Santa Fe, Rosario, Bahia Blanca, Buenos Aires, Montevideo. They were what? They were having slaughtering houses where the cattle were brought and they were slaughtered. These are known as frigorificos, these slaughtering houses. These urban settlements grew in the form of slaughtering houses, and this owes their credit to these cattle ranches and sheep rearing farms. Sheep and cattle were brought here first being slaughtered, and gradually these urban centers developed well established market abroad, and they evolved in the form of slaughtering houses, known as frigorificos, and gradually they turned out into big cities. So the urbanization in this part of the world owes to ranches, these cattle rearing and sheep rearing. They were brought for slaughtering. These slaughtering houses transformed into big urban cities. So there's not much in this South America. So this is all about South America. Now we will come on to Australia. So this is Australia. Open up your map. Open up your map and open up the map of Australia. Open up the map of Australia. Now you can see this is Australia. It is the oldest continent of the world. Geologically, Australia happens to be the oldest continent of the world. And here on Alps, there is a Mount Kosciuszko, south of Canberra, Mount Kosciuszko, which is the oldest land on this planet. Mount Kosciuszko we'll discuss. There's a peak, highest peak of Alps. Highest peak of Alps just south of Canberra. This happens to be the oldest landmass on this planet. Now, if you see north of Australia, there's a country, Papua New Guinea. There's an island. Western half is under Indonesia. Remaining is Papua New Guinea. So, western part is under Iran, this Indonesia, and this is Papua New Guinea. Now, if you see to the east of Australia, there is huge coral reef, Great Barrier Reef, extending for a distance of 2000 from 9 degrees south to 22 degrees south. Coral reef. Then here it is Coral Sea. And between Papua New Guinea, this happens to be the most densely forested country in the world. 93% area of Papua New Guinea is under forest. This Coral Sea is connected to Arafura Sea by Torres Strait. Torres Strait. Strait is a narrow water body connecting two seas. This is Gulf of Carpentaria. This is Timor Sea. This water body is known as Great Australian Bight. Bay, Bight, Gulf, they are used interchangeably. People say what is the difference? As of now, we use it interchangeably. मतलब किसी को भी they call it bay, then they keep on calling bay, bight, gulf. Water body, such like sea. This is known as Gulf of Spencer. Gulf of Spencer. This narrow water body is known as this one, Gulf of St. Vincent. This water body is called Encounter Bay. This strait that separates Tasmania from Australian mainland is known as Bass Strait. This peninsula is known as Cape York Peninsula. This is known as Eyre Peninsula. And this peninsula, which is separating Gulf of Spencer from Gulf of St. Vincent, this peninsula is known as York Peninsula. So this was about the surrounding seas. Coral Sea, Torres Strait connecting to Arafura Sea and Gulf of Carpentaria, Timor Sea. In south it is Great Australian Bight. Then further east, this narrow water body. This narrow water body is known as Gulf of Spencer. This water body is known as Gulf of St. Vincent. And this land area is known as York Peninsula. York Peninsula. This water body is known as Encounter Bay. This Encounter Bay is separated from Alexandrina Lake by way of a bar. We will discuss. This is Bass Strait. So now let us start with Australia. Uh, you see, Australia plus New Zealand plus these islands, several islands. These islands are grouped into three groups: islands of Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. This together is known as Oceania. Australia, New Zealand, and these islands, which are grouped into three groups on the basis of races: Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. This together is known as Oceania. Now, let us start with physiography of Australia. Australia can be divided into three physiographic regions. First is Western Plateau region. Second is Central Lowland. And third is Eastern Highland. So, physiographically, Australia can be divided into three regions. Western Plateau. See in your atlas physiographic map of Australia. Yellow, yellow दिखेगा. Plateau appears to be yellow. This plateau region spreads over large part of west. Let me tell you provinces also. This is known as Western Australia. It is a state of Australia. It is South Australia. This is a union territory known as Northern Territory. Again, this is a state known as Queensland state. This is New South Wales. This is Victoria. And this is Tasmania. And this is Canberra, capital Canberra. So there are two UTs. One is Northern Territory and Canberra, the National Capital Territory, NCT Canberra and Northern Territory. These two are UTs. This is UT. Why? Because it is very sparsely populated. Such large area having only 2 lakh population. It is UT and Canberra is UT. And the others are state: Western Australia, South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania. These are the states. This southeastern part is most densely populated. This New South Wales accounts for 1/3 of the population. Victoria accounts for 1/4 of the population. These two states together account for 60% of the total population of Australia. Southeastern part, New South Wales and Victoria. Now the western part, this Western Plateau spreads over Western Australia, parts of Northern Territory, Southern Australia, South Australia. Western Plateau accounts for almost half of the country. Now, this is a high level plateau. It is mostly desert: Gibson Desert, Victoria Deserts, Great Sandy Desert. It is mostly a desert. Now, then east of it lies Central Lowlands. Central Lowlands, these are spread over Northern Territory, interior of Queensland, and this South Australia, and parts of New South Wales and Victoria. Central lowland, it's a low-lying region that is spread between Gulf of Carpentaria to Great Australian Bight. Central lowland lies in Northern Territory, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia. Now, this central lowland can in turn be divided into three regions. Central lowlands can in turn be divided into three regions. They extend from Gulf of Carpentaria to Great Australian Bight, and they are spread over these states. They can be divided into three regions. One is lowlands around Gulf of Carpentaria. Central lowlands, these are further divided into three parts. One is Carpentaria lowlands, that is region surrounding Gulf of Carpentaria. Second is one is Carpentaria lowlands. Second part of central lowland is Eyre Basin. The central part, which is an area of inland drainage. It is an area of inland drainage where rivers dry inside. Matlab, numerous salt lakes are located here. Lake Eyre Basin, we'll discuss. Numerous river flow, all the rivers flow inside. It is a saucer shaped, katori jesa depression, where the rivers flow inland and they form saline lakes. And third region is Murray-Darling Basin. Third region is Murray-Darling Basin. So in north, if you see here, there's a Berkeley Tableland and Selwyn Range. This Berkeley Tableland and Selwyn Range separates Carpentaria lowlands from these Lake Eyre Basin. This, I'm rubbing this. This is Berkeley Tableland and this is Selwyn Range. It separates Carpentaria lowland from Lake Eyre Basin. This is and this is Selwyn Range. And in the east, Barrier Range and Grey Range separates Lake Eyre Basin from Murray-Darling Basin. This is Barrier Range and this is Grey Range. They separate Murray-Darling Basin from Eyre Basin. Now, Murray-Darling Basin happens to be the agriculturally richest, best agriculture patch of land in Australia. Here there is a river Murray, which forms the large chunk of border of Victoria and New South Wales, Murray. And then there is a tributary coming from north which meets this river. This is known as Darling. Then another tributaries are there, Lachan, Murrumbidgee. This is Lachan and this tributary, this is known as this tributary of Lachan which meets Murray is Murrumbidgee. So this Darling River, Lachan River, Murrumbidgee River, Murray River. All these are the tributaries of Murray. Finally, it falls in Encounter Bay. Now, this is there's a sandbar. There's a sandbar. Wherever this river falls, a sandbar has been formed. Because of this sandbar, this lake, ocean going ships cannot enter into this river system. Although Murray-Darling Basin is excellent for inland navigation, but you cannot move out into sea, or ocean going steamers cannot enter into it. Why? Because of this offshore bar to the east, to the west of it. Here this is Encounter Bay, and this offshore bar encloses a narrow lagoon which is known as Alexandrina Lake. This river actually falls in Alexandrina Lake, and that lake is separated from Encounter Bay by way of this long lagoon with this offshore sandbar. This sandbar separates this lake from Encounter Bay. So ocean going steamers cannot enter into this river. Although this river is very good navigable in the inland, but you cannot move into sea. And this Lake Eyre Basin, it is an area of inland drainage having numerous saline lakes. Lake Eyre is the lowest place. Lake Eyre, very saline lake. It gets filled once in 10 years. It is below sea level. Other lakes are also there. Lake Torrens, Lake Gardner, all are salt lakes. All of them are salt lake. This region around Hudson Bay lowland is a low-lying region where it is swampy and the river drains into Carpentaria Gulf. So this was about the central lowlands. I told you central lowlands are spread over Northern Territory, Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria, right? Here, these are the low-lying areas. These are the low-lying areas, and here they are in turn divided into three parts. Carpentaria lowland, Lake Eyre Basin, and Murray-Darling Basin. And this Berkeley Tableland, Selwyn Range separates Carpentaria lowlands from Eyre Basin, and this Barrier Range and Grey Range separates Eyre Basin from Lake Murray-Darling Basin. So now let us come on to the eastern part, Eastern Highlands. Then comes Eastern Highlands. Now Eastern Highlands, I should rub this. Eastern Highlands extend from Queensland in Cape York Peninsula, and they continue south up to Victoria. In fact, they are found to be continuing south of Bass Strait into Tasmania. Eastern Highlands runs from north to south parallel to the coast. This is third physiographic region, Eastern Highland. Now, if you see, it is not a folded mountain. In fact, it is an edge of plateau. The eastern side of the Eastern Highland is steep like a scarp. It is steep, and they gently slopes towards west. Eastern Highland is not a fold mountain. Popularly, they are known as Great Dividing Range. Eastern Highland are popularly known as Great Dividing Range because of steep edge on the east. All the moisture bearing winds are restricted. The climate on the western side is entirely different, arid. Eastern edge of this Great Dividing Range is steep like a escarpment, and it gently slopes westward. So Great Dividing Range has separated eastern part from western part. From north, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, they further extend into this Tasmania. Now, here if you see, there's a peak, Mount Kosciuszko, the highest peak. Mount Kosciuszko. It is the oldest landmass on this planet. Mount Kosciuszko happens to be the oldest landmass on this planet, and this Great Dividing Range is known by different names in different parts. For example, in New South Wales, in northern part, it is known as New England Range. Then in the middle part, here it is known as Liverpool Range, and southern part again it is known as Blue Mountains, and south of Kosciuszko they are known as Snowy Mountains. So these are the various names of Great Dividing Range in New South Wales. In New South Wales they are known differently. In New South Wales they are known as New England Range, Liverpool Range, Blue Mountain, Snowy Mountain, and in Victoria this Great Dividing Range is known as Alps, Australian Alps. Australian Alps is the name given to this Great Dividing Range in Victoria. So these are the various names of this mountain range. Now let us come on to this very important aspect of Australia. Australia is having numerous artesian basin. What is artesian basin? Basically, below the earth, water is held. Suppose this is earth's surface. Below the earth, water is held in various aquifers. Aquifers are bounded on either side, and in the pore spaces of sand, water is held. There are various aquifers, and these aquifers lie at various depth where water is stored in the pore spaces of sand. Now, you might dug 70 meter, you may get aquifer, then you may dug 140 meter, you may get aquifer, isn't it? And we withdraw water from these aquifer through our summer or through hand pumps. We withdraw the water. Now, in certain cases, these aquifers below the surface are in the form of curved. They are curved. They are curved. Now, these, when they are curved, where the water is held, if they are curved, if you dug the soil, then what will happen? As you will dig this, water will start moving out on its own because of pressure from the side, and basically water moves up, moves out. Such basins are known as artesian basins, where the aquifers is in the form, is curved, is in the form of U-shaped. Then what happens? As you dig the soil and reach the aquifer, water automatically starts oozing out. Why? Because of pressure from the surrounding high regions of aquifers. This water starts moving out, and such regions are known as artesian. Such basins are known as artesian basin. Australia is having 6 artesian basins. The greatest of them is Great Australian Basin. Australia is having 6 artesian basin, largest of which is Great Australian Basin, located in the inner part of Queensland. But these water of this basin is very hot and saline, so it is neither useful for agriculture, nor industry, nor domestic use. It is used only for sheep's, washing the sheep wool and all. So this water of this artesian basin is hot and saline, so it is of no use for human consumption or agriculture or industries. Now, let us discuss some climatic aspects of Australia. Climate. Why Australia is a big desert? Why is it a desert? There are 3 reasons why Australia is a big desert. 1, If you see, Tropic of Capricorn passes through the middle of Australia. So the northern part of Australia is tropical and the southern part is temperate. Because of Tropic of Cancer, what happens? Subtropical high pressure belt is found. I'll discuss in climatology, where sinking of air takes place. And whenever air sink, it is warm and dry. So sinking of air ensures that there is no rainfall over Australia. Where rainfall occurs whenever the air rises. Here, because of subtropical high pressure belt, air keeps on sinking. On the eastern side, where onshore trade winds are there, the Great Dividing Range does not permit the moisture bearing impact of these winds to move inward. They are confined to the coastal areas. And on the western side, offshore trade winds are there. So cold West Australian West Australian current, offshore trade wind don't allow rainfall to take place. The three reasons why Australia is a big desert: one, subtropic of Cancer passes through its middle, so subtropical high pressure belt lies over it, where sinking takes place, so no rainfall. On the eastern side, Great Dividing Range does not permit moisture bearing winds to move inwards. And third, on the western side, offshore trade winds does not allow rainfall to take place. Therefore, we have cold current on the western side. So these are three reasons why Australia is a big desert. Now, climatic regions of Australia. Herein we'll discuss in climatology. This part of Australia is having monsoonic climate, where reversal of wind takes place, although it is known as pseudo-monsoonic. Monsoonic. Tropical maritime climate, where the rainfall occurs east of Great Dividing Range because of trade winds. South of monsoonic, this is savanna type climate. It is temperate grassland. Here, this maritime climate continues to the south also, tropical. But since it is not tropical region, it is tropical maritime. You can call it temperate maritime. Temperate grassland, downs are found here. Southwestern part of Australia has Mediterranean climate. This region and this region is Mediterranean climate. Why? Because of shifting of pressure belt, we'll discuss in climatology. And this is Nullarbor Plains, and this entire is sandy desert and interior lowland. This is also desert. Desert, don't call it sandy. It is all desert. Low-lying region where inland drainage, that is also desert, nothing grows over there. Rest is desert. So these are the various climatic regions. Why? We will discuss in climatology. Now, before starting the mineral wealth, we must discuss some population aspect. You see, Australia's population is very small. It accounts for almost 5.8% area of land area of the world, but just 0.3% population. Its population is equal to that of Delhi. 5.8% land area of the world and 0.3% population. In terms of population, the southeastern part of Australia accounts for bulk of population. New South Wales account for one-third population. Victoria accounts for one-third population. Most of the population is clustered in the southeastern part, and most population lives in 8 largest cities. See, this Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, Darwin, Brisbane, Canberra, Hobart. These 8 cities account for bulk of the population of Australia. Brisbane, capital of Queensland. Sydney, the largest city of Australia. This is Canberra, National Capital Territory. This is Melbourne. Melbourne is the second largest city. This is Hobart, capital of Tasmania. This is Adelaide, capital of South Australia. Perth, Darwin, capital of Northern Territory. Northern Territory, this northern part of Northern Territory has been exclusively reserved for the Aborigines. This region is known as Arnhem Land. This is exclusively reserved for original inhabitants and they account for 2.2% population of Australia. Third largest city is Brisbane, capital of Queensland. So these are the cities, and these cities, 8 cities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, account for bulk of its population. Aborigines or original inhabitants account for just 2.2% population. They are confined to Arnhem Land in northern part of Northern Territories. Now let us come on to this agriculture and industry, agriculture, minerals and industry. Right. So Australia is very well known for sheep rearing. Australia has the distinction of having the largest number of sheep in the world, and these sheep are reared for wool. In South America, sheep rearing is more for mutton. In Australia, sheep rearing is for wool. Merino sheep, originally found in Meseta Plateau of Spain. Now they are in maximum number. Australia has the largest population of sheep in the world, and it is the largest producer of these sheep are kept for wool. Australia is the largest producer of wool and largest exporter of wool, and Sydney is known as wool port of the world. जैसे I told you, Santos along the coast of Sao Paulo state, east of Sao Paulo city, Santos is the coffee port of the world. Likewise, Sydney is the wool port. Sydney is the wool port of the world. Here sheep are kept in downs. This to the west of Great Dividing Range, these temperate grasslands are there, known as downs. Sheep rearing happened to be the most important activity. Merino sheep. So if you see the sheep belt, you will find New South Wales account for 50% of sheep population, 20% by Queensland, and 15% sheep population by Victoria. So these three are the most important sheep rearing provinces. Now cattle rearing. I told you cattle require wet climate, sheep require dry climate. To the east of Great Dividing Range in southern Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, cattle rearing for milk. Here high grade cattle are reared for milk production, not for meat. To the east of Great Dividing Range in southern Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, cattle rearing for milk is very important, and Australia happens to be a very important milk producing country because of this belt lying east of Great Dividing Range. Cattle are of high grade, pastures are nutritious, and cattle are maintained on scientific lines, regular vaccination, and veterinary doctors visit over there. Everything is automated. So cattle rearing, the most important region of dairy farming in Australia lies in Victoria, in southern side. Here there is Great Valley or Gippsland district is most famous for dairy farming. In Victoria, basically Great Valley or Gippsland district is most famous for dairy farming. Huh, to the south of this monsoonic climate here in savannas, as I told you, savannas are what? Tropical grassland. Llanos of Venezuela and Colombia, Campos of Brazil, these were what? These were tropical grassland. And tropical grasslands are known as savanna. This is tropical grassland. Here we find tropical grassland. Tropical grassland means savanna climate. Same thing. So here cattle are kept for beef. You can recall in Llanos cattle were kept for beef. Why? Because grasses are not nutritious. In Campos also cattle were kept for beef because grasses were not nutritious. Again in Australia in tropical grassland just south of monsoonic climate, here tropical grasslands are found known as savannas. Every tropical grassland is known as savanna. In South America, they have been given names like Llanos, Campos. Here in Australia, there is no name for it, no name, special name for it. Here in savanna grassland or tropical grassland, beef cattle are kept for beef. Now, agriculture. If you see agriculture, 6.5% area of Australia is arable. Compared to India, in India 44% area is arable. In Australia in China just 13% area is arable. In Australia just 6.5% area is arable. 4.5% population is engaged in agriculture and agriculture account for 3% of GDP. 6.5% area, 4.5% population is engaged in agriculture and agriculture accounts for 3% of GDP. Now, first, wheat is the most important crop. Wheat happens to be the most important crop. Wheat is the primary crop in temperate grasslands and Mediterranean region. Wheat happens to be the staple food crop. So here again wheat, Australia accounts for 4% of global wheat production. Again, just like this Mediterranean climate, wheat is the staple food. And in Murray-Darling Basin, this Murray-Darling Basin. So wheat cultivation is important where? Wheat in Mediterranean climate, southwest, Mediterranean climate, wheat, Murray-Darling Basin, wheat, these are the wheat belts. Second, sugarcane. Yes, sugarcane is grown in the northeastern part, east of Great Dividing Range in Queensland and northern New South Wales. Queensland to the east of Great Dividing Range and northern part of New South Wales, sugarcane. Australia accounts for 2.5% of total sugarcane production of the world and 4% wheat production of the world. Sugarcane cultivation is confined to this region. Sugarcane. One more thing, dairy farming. If you see dairy farming again in southern part. Yeah. Now here we are talking about the agriculture. Now fruits, obviously fruits are grown in Mediterranean climate. This wheat belt coincides this in west. Fruit citrus fruit, oranges, lemons, grapes. Wheat belt also happens to be the fruit belt. Here also wheat belt happens to be fruit belt where citrus fruits are grown. In Tasmania, it is cool temperate climate, so apple orchards are found. In Tasmania, because of cool temperate climate, apple orchards are found. So fruit cultivation is important in Western Australia, New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia and Tasmania. Now let us come on to minerals. What are the important minerals? Australia is immensely rich in mineral wealth. Australia is immensely rich in mineral wealth. Largest reserves of iron ore, largest reserves of uranium, largest producer of bauxite, second largest reserves of bauxite, largest reserves of pink diamond. Huge, it is immensely rich. Huge reserves of coal, third largest producer of coal. So let us see first iron ore. Australia has world's largest reserves of iron ore. Largest reserves, Australia. See, production is different. China is the largest producer of iron ore. Although Australia has largest reserves, second largest reserves are found in Brazil and third largest reserves are found in Russia. Reserves. But production, China is first, Australia is second. Production is not so important as reserves because reserves are, it remains same. Production keeps on fluctuating. जैसे after rainfall in China, coal mines were filled with water, so coal mine production was reduced, but reserves remain same. Now in Australia, it is having the largest reserve and it is the second largest producer. Please use a keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. ये क्या कह रहा है? Now see, the quality of ore is also good. Largest reserves and second largest producer. Now in Australia, in the Western Australia, there is a region known as Pilbara region. This region accounts for 95% of the reserves and production also. Robe River is flowing through it. Robe River. Here there are various important mines. Mount Goldsworthy mine, Mount Newman mine, Mount Tom Price, Mount Whaleback. After Carajás deposits of Brazil, I told you single largest deposits at a place are found in Brazil. In Pará state, there is a Carajás Hills. There is a Carajás Hill that account for the single largest deposit. This is second, single largest deposit. Australia is having largest reserves and basically it is second largest producer. This region accounts for 95% production. And this in Eyre Peninsula, this is Eyre Peninsula, you have remaining 5% iron ore deposits in Eyre Peninsula. Here the important mines are Iron Knob, Iron Baron, Iron Monarch. The three important mines: iron, knob, K-N-O-B, knob, iron, baron, B-A-R-R-O-N, iron, monarch, these. Brazil is having the second largest reserves. We discussed Carajás Hills and Itabira. Russia is having the third largest reserves. Here, the best quality iron ore is found in at Kursk, KMA. In Russia, it is in European Russia, just above Ukraine. There is a place Kursk, Kursk, also known as Kursk magnetic anomaly. Apart from it, in Russia, you also find iron ore along Ural ranges, Nizhny Tagil, Magnitogorsk, Chelyabinsk. These are very important settlements for iron ore mining in Russia. So this was Australia. Now next resource is uranium. Uranium, again, Australia is having the world's largest reserves. Has largest reserves. In terms of reserves, you see Australia alone account for 31% of world reserves of uranium. Second comes Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has replaced Canada to third place in terms of reserves. New discoveries of uranium have been made at Kazakhstan. Since 6-7 years, Kazakhstan is second. In terms of reserve, Australia is first, Kazakhstan second, Canada third. But in terms of production, Kazakhstan is first, Canada is second, Australia is third. But reserves are important. Australia can increase its production anytime. Here in New Queensland, there is a place, Mary Kathleen, uranium deposits. Then in southern Australia, there is a place, Radium Hills or Radium Hill. And then in Northern Territory, south of Arnhem Land, Ranger deposits. These are the largest uranium mines in Australia, and because of these, Australia happened to be the country having largest reserves of uranium, although it is third largest producer. Now next, bauxite. Again, Australia happens to be the world's largest producer. In terms of reserves, if you see, Guinea, African country, is having the largest reserves. Second is Australia. Third is Brazil. In terms of reserves, if you see, but in terms of production, Australia is first. So bauxite, in terms of reserves, Australia is second, but in terms of production, it is first. Entire Guinea is richly endowed with bauxite. In Australia, bauxite, world's largest bauxite deposits are found at Waipa. जैसे काराजास हिल्स थे ना ब्राजील में सिंगल लार्जेस्ट डिपॉजिट ऑफ आयरन ओर, वैसे सिंगल लार्जेस्ट डिपॉजिट ऑफ बॉक्साइट इज फाउंड एट वाइपा in Australia. And to the west of Gulf of Carpentaria, there is another mine, Gove mine. It also has some deposits of bauxite. Waipa is largest in the world, single mine. Brazil I discussed. I told you in northern Amazon basin, to the east of Carajás, there was Paragominas, and to the west of Carajás, it was Porto Trombetas. Two mines of bauxite, most important, huge mines in Brazil. Paragominas is east of Carajás Hills in Amazon basin. Porto Trombetas, west of Carajás Hills, again in Amazon basin. So this is bauxite. Now small, some minor deposits like manganese. This island known for manganese deposits. Gruti, Gruti Island, known for manganese deposits. Second, lead and zinc. Australia is world's second largest producer of lead and zinc. First is basically China. China is first. Australia is second largest producer of lead and zinc, and largest lead and zinc mine is found in New South Wales, just east of Port Radium. Here there is Broken Hill. Broken Hill is the largest lead and zinc mine, and then to the west of Mary Kathleen there is a place Mount Isa is the second lead and zinc mine. Broken Hill is the largest. So Australia is second largest producer of lead and zinc in the world. If you see copper production, then Morgan, and in north there's Tennant Creek. Tennant Creek. Tennant Creek. These two are known for copper production. Now, gold. See again, when it comes to gold, Australia is world's second largest producer of gold. China is first, followed by Australia. And in Australia, gold is mostly found in gold. Western part. Kal Gur Lai, Cool Gardai, Norsemen. These are the gold mines. And in Victoria, Ballarat and Bendigo are the two gold mines. So this makes Australia the second largest producer of gold. These are the important mines, gold mines in Australia. Now diamond. Diamond. See, if you see diamond as such, it is the most precious metal, and if you see in terms of reserves, then I think in diamond, mm, in terms of reserves, in Africa there is a place Katanga Plateau, Central Africa, where Democratic Republic of Congo, Zaire are located. It is there is a Katanga Plateau. This Katanga Plateau is worldwide known for copper and diamond. So Democratic Republic of Congo, Botswana, Russia, they all are having huge diamond reserves. But so far as pink diamond is concerned, if you see pink diamond is something different. Pink diamond is basically confined to Australia. There's a Argyll range. Argyll range. Uh, Here, pink diamond is found. Pink diamond. Basically, if you talk about diamond as such, then Democratic Republic of Congo, Botswana, and Russia, they are having far more reserves. But if you talk about pink diamond, then 90% of the pink diamond reserves are found in Argyll range here. And Australia is a very big producer of pink diamond. So if you see Now almost all minerals are covered. Now let us come on to energy resources. Let us see what all energy resources are found in. Now, if you see energy resources, diamond important deposits are Arghil range. Here, world's 90% production of pink diamond comes from this region. Now, energy resources. First is coal, second is oil and gas. Australia is well endowed with coal deposits, basically, and coal is of good quality, not like India, 60% of coal is inferior. In Australia, the coal is of good quality, and Australia happens to be the third largest producer after China and USA, and it is having fourth largest reserves in the world. In terms of coal, it is the third largest producer after China and USA, and fourth largest reserves. Two-thirds of the reserves are found in New South Wales. One-third of the reserves, coal reserves, are found in Queensland. Australia is also a major exporter of coal because of such large reserves. It is a very important exporter. Two-thirds of the reserves are found in New South Wales, one-third in Queensland. In Australia, in New South Wales, there is a river known as Hunter Valley, known as Hunter Valley. Just like Damodar Valley is endowed with coal seams, Hunter Valley of Australia is very famous for coal reserves. And near the mouth of Hunter Valley, there is a city, Newcastle, known for coal reserves. South of it lies Sydney. Near Sydney, huge coal fields are found. West of Sydney, there is a place, Lithgow, famous for coal reserves. And south of Sydney along the coast, there is a place, Bully, known for coal reserves. So Hunter Valley, on the mouth of Hunter Valley, Newcastle city, Newcastle town known for coal reserves, as well as it is an important steel manufacturing center. Then near Sydney, west of Sydney, Lithgow, known for coal reserves. South of Sydney, it is Bully, known for coal reserves. This accounts for two-thirds of the coal production of or coal reserves of Australia. Now in New South Wales near Brisbane, there is a place, Ipswich, coal reserves. And this northern region of this Queensland, the central region, coastal region, is known for coal reserves. Ipswich is known for coal reserves near Brisbane in Queensland. Then there's a place, Maryborough, known for coal reserves. Blair Athol, known for coal reserve. Bowen Basin, known for coal reserves. And south of Blair Athol, there is a place, Rockhampton, known for coal reserves. Rockhampton. So in Queensland, coal is found at Ipswich, Maryborough, Rockhampton, Blair Athol, Bowen Basin. This accounts for one-third of the coal reserves. If you talk about oil, then oil is found in the southern part of Northern Territory. In the southern part of Northern Territory, basically oil is found at this Alice Spring and Merency. Here two towns are there, Alice Spring and Merency. And here gas is found. This is the region for gas, Alice Spring and Merency. Gas is natural gas. In Bass Strait and Gippsland oil field are famous for oil. Oil is found at Bass Strait and Gippsland oil field. Gippsland district is also famous for dairy farming. Gippsland oil field. So this was about the mineral resources of Australia. Now in Australia, most of the cities are located, a population is located on cities. Few important manufacturing centers you can see here. There is place in Eyre Peninsula. Important steel manufacturing center, Whyalla. Then north of Sydney, Newcastle, important steel manufacturing center. South of Sydney, there is a place, Port Kembla, important for steel manufacturing. These are steel manufacturing centers. And then west, Kwinana, there is a place, basically Kwinana, just close to Perth. This is Perth. The output of Perth is Fremantle. Just in between, there is a place important for steel manufacturing. So in the southern part, if you see, there's a very unique topography not to be found anywhere. These are steel centers of Australia. In the southern side, you find a very flat, treeless, longest stretch of flat, treeless plain known as Nullarbor Plains. Nullarbor Plains. It is karst landscape. It is limestone landscape, totally treeless. It continues for 2000 kilometer in Western Australia and Western Australia and South Australia. It continues to 2000 kilometer over 2 lakh square kilometer area. It is the longest stretch of truly treeless plain. Nothing grows over here. Nothing grows over here. It is truly barren. Totally barren. Now it is said to be the world's largest limestone landscape, which is truly treeless. Spread over 2.7 lakh square kilometer area. And its name Nullarbor simply means no trees. So this was all about Australia. Tomorrow I'll start with New Zealand, and then we'll move on to Asia, China. Hmm.